Gadzooks, it's time again for a tag game. I don't know what I'll be able to tag because I don't know many people that I can actually try to tag, but here goes. I'll try my best. I was tagged by Jay, and Heidi was hoping to actually tag me, but so she didn't get a chance. Sorry about that, Heidi, but here's my response to the actual Halloween tag. Well, the questions were asked by Wasp, passed on to Jay and other people that are currently doing it. So here's my responses. 1. What is your favorite Halloween candy? Kit Kats, mini Kit Kats. Either that or mini coffee crisps. 2. What is your favorite Halloween costume for years past? Didn't really have a favorite Halloween costume. Actually, I don't remember ever dressing up in a way that I was actually ever satisfied with my costumes. But one costume I did enjoy, but paid for it in spades for the week after, was actually participating as a volunteer at the Boo at the Zoo here at the Magnetic Hill, and I was dressed up as Frankenstein, leaning against the table with 2 extra gnarly prosthetic hands that I was actually holding on with 2 sticks, so I was like this pretty much all day. I was dressed in dark clothing to hide anything that might suggest that I'm a human being. The only problem is that it was in a cement building, and the floor was cement. There was no pad underneath. I was wearing my snow boots, I guess you could probably call them. It's snow boots. Literally, that's what it was. Except that it didn't bode well. The mask itself was a very large latex mask or plastic mask. And when I mean large, I mean it was a head. Basically, you had to fit it in so that the plastic flap would be there. But the only problem is that the holes, it wasn't a rigid face that they designed. They designed it so it could be molded to a person's face. The only problem was that I was having issues trying to actually keep my eyes in the same sockets, and eventually it would actually start to shift and go off, so I'd end up with one nostril going up my nose, and suffice it to say, I scared a lot of people, but I also paid for it for being such a naughty boy. What age did you stop trick-or-treating? Around the age of 13 to 16, if I remember correctly. The last year that I trick-or-treated, it was as cold as it is right now. I was freezing, and I looked at my younger brother and I said, "This is the last year I'm doing trick-or-treating. For God help me, I'm not going to do this again." Of course, it was in French. What is your favorite horror movie genre character? Well, let's see. Horror movie would be Hellraiser, pretty much the whole series, except when they started going past 3 where it started getting ridiculous. But isn't that the same thing with any franchise? It tends to become like that. It becomes ridiculous as it goes on. Except Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 was actually better than the first one. But that's my opinion. Genre character would have to be Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies. He's the only guy I know that would actually torment his victims and keep this particular face neutral. What is your favorite horror movie or movie series? Well, Hellraiser. I have other. Actually, there's others that I actually enjoyed, but they're not really horror movies-ish. They're Warlock 2. I was never a big Friday the 13th fan. I tried getting into it and I simply couldn't. One movie that's actually undersold, Aliens, Alien Clowns from Space, where they actually killed people. Killed them, it's kind of strong. They didn't really kill them, they actually fed on them. I remember the movie itself was weird because they had this big gigantic clown boss monster type thingy. I guess he was probably the head monster, who was there to actually keep order. You only saw him towards the end of the movie, But it's everything else that they decided. They'd wrap people into cotton candy cocoons, take a swirly straw, plant it in, and suck out the digested juices, which basically was pretty much entirely blood. They killed the poor security guard by pieing him to death, which it was some form of acidic pie, because the only thing that was left of his arm was a skeletal hanging out of the pile of whipped cream. They captured people with shadow puppets that they made on the wall. Don't know if it's because they transformed them into kernels, but anyways. The popcorn that they had was actually quite nefarious, because it ended up sprouting this alien plant that would try to eat you. And they looked non-menacing, but they were deadly. There's a bunch of other movies that are worth seeing. Ginger Snaps, but that's a Canadian flick, and it's not for everyone. Ginger Snaps 2 wasn't as great as Ginger Snaps. Pretty much all the vampire movies. I'm trying to think of any other movie series. Horror movie series would have to be, if we're talking about TV series, there used to be the Friday the 13th series. It wasn't based on Jason, it was based on these evil artifacts that they had to find and secure away, because they had curses, bad curses, such as this one pair of white leather gloves that belonged to an Italian physician that could cure anything. The only problem is that if you didn't get rid of the disease or whatever it was you were curing, the gloves would absorb it, but they would start bonding with you. And if you didn't get rid of them fast enough, you'd die from whatever it was that you were treating. Such as if somebody's cancer, you'd end up being eaten to death by cancer. If you took care of somebody's gunshot wound, you had to dump it on somebody else who would die, because they would multiply the disease by almost 100, or the injury by 100. So if you cure yourself with a bullet and you don't have a victim to actually stick it to, that would be an issue. Poltergeist also has, in regards to not the series on TV, I didn't particularly like it, but Poltergeist 1, 2, and 3 on movie. Poltergeist 1 scared the bejesus out of me. Poltergeist 2 was even more so, because the poor dad in the middle of it swallows a tequila worm that's infested with that evil spirit, and he becomes that evil spirit, and he's trying to reject it because he's got this charm that doesn't allow him to keep it in him for quite a long time. So he decides to throw up pretty much all the organs, and you see the little ugly bastard starting to form, and then you either want to retch or you want to close your eyes and say, this isn't happening. Of course, it's a movie, but when you're a kid and you're doing this with friends at night, you're watching this without lights, it can scare you. That and Night of the Living Dead. Is it Night of the Living Dead? The one where the bodies were all coming back because of rain chemicals that went into the atmosphere, rained down into the crypts, and they come back and go for brains. Humans that were infected by the actual chemicals or bitten by the original monster in the biohazard canister or drum actually started becoming dead. One guy, both of them worked in the funeral parlor. One guy who saw that he was becoming dead because he started displaying rigor mortis. He couldn't move, so he started breaking his own limbs. He said, "Oh God," and he crawled himself into the incinerator and killed himself. "Forgive me, darling," and he hangs his ring on the snail, and off he goes. And as for what is your favorite horror genre video game, Silent Hill up to a point. From what my friend the Angry Gnome is telling me, the series has advanced quite a lot, so it's a lot better. I remember Resident Evil, that I actually enjoyed quite a lot when it was used for a horror movie game, but apart from that, horror movie games are very difficult to come by. Ones that make sense or are fun to actually play. Medieval is one that's actually one to recommend for Halloween if you want to laugh. Anyways, I tagged Chi Ranger and Scratching Cat. Have a nice one.